on this episode of A Peek into the Past.
In my memory, I will always see the town that I have loved.
Next week, it's probably just going to be me and Mama talking because I think the emotion is overtaking Jamie to where I don't think she could handle it 2 weeks in a row. Eventually, I do think she is going to tell her story, but it's going to be one of those things that it's going to have to be 1 minute at a time for her. She's only going to be able to say one sentence periodically. She might not be able to talk for another couple months. As long as you're willing to continue the story, she will get it out. It's just going to have to be at her time, at her pace. I'm used to talking. I'm a talker. I've had therapy for years. I've been in therapy for it. So I understand the more you talk about it, the easier. I want to say easy, but it's not easy. None of it's ever easy. But it almost takes the power away of it until the day when I was in the same room with him. All of the years of training to detach myself and just tell the story went out the window because there was no detaching it. Because I was there with my mom and my sister trying to survive it again. Even if it's just a memory, it's still a memory of trying to survive.
Mama whipped me 3 times a day, whether I needed it or not. She just done it in case I didn't need it. But I loved her a whole lot more than I did Daddy. I loved Daddy. He just wasn't. I don't know, just wasn't close to the kids. He worked all the time. I don't know. You just have to ask the questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. So how did you meet JR? There's your doozy. How'd you meet him?
You can't say that.
What, that he was the biggest mistake of your life?
Yeah.
Dumped a cup of coffee in his lap.
Other than as kids, that was about the only good thing about him.
That was the only good thing about him was when I had my kids. My kids was my life. When I had all my kids, I was just in heaven. He came on the curb to get a cup of coffee, and I carried it out on the tray. First time I ever met him, I put 1 single cup of coffee on a tray, and then you hung them on the windows. You know how gardens drive-in dust their trays?
Mm-hmm.
We did that too. Put that 1 single cup of coffee on a tray, tried to hang it on the window, and dumped it over in his lap. Just ran back in the building.
You didn't say nothing, just run off?
I sort of did. Everybody remembers my working there except me.
Bet you wish you could pour more hot coffee in.
I wish I did. Sang together at church, and he started going everywhere we did. All fake. He just pretended. And I just want to leave the rest out. Jamie had a really hard life. And I never had to put, like when your kids are little and pulling up and stuff, I never had to put anything away because she never bothered it.
Because I'm
The lid on it.
We had a really rough childhood. You've heard some of the stories. But out of all of the siblings, Jamie had it the worst. Hands down.
Jamie and Harlan. Jamie the worst, Harlan the next one.
And then I'd say I was third in line.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much the 3 of us.
What was it about the 3 of them that he just targeted on for no reason? Like, what was the reason that he had to just target
I have no idea.
them?
I have no idea.
Because he hated me.
But why?
Because he said he did.
Did he hate you
I was
because?
born and lived. That's true. I was born and lived.
It's the
That's
truth.
the truth. Say whatever you want to say.
And that's his
Say
words.
whatever.
I
But-
was born and lived.
To start off, I was raised really strict. I wasn't allowed to say no words, not dang, not. It was just straight. I was raised strict. And my daddy was not much. Let's put it this way. He was an alcoholic. He was an old drunk. Mama had a hard life. When I was almost 18, like I said, me, his sister-in-law, and his brother sang at church. He started going everywhere we went. And then he came to take me home. I had no idea not to get in the car with him. Instead of taking me home, he took me to his apartment and raped me. I couldn't tell Daddy, I couldn't tell Mama, because like I said, I was raised so strict it's unbelievable. Wasn't allowed to dance, wasn't allowed to do anything. And then after that, I didn't have no choice but to marry him. And then when I started having my kids, that was worth everything that I went through. Having all my kids was worth it. But no, he was no good for nobody. His mom and daddy told me to begin with, if you marry him, that'll be the worst mistake you will ever make in your life. And he would say, oh, that's just because they don't like me. That's just because they don't want me to come home, this, that, and the other. And no, they was telling the truth. It wasn't like it is today. You had no outside help, and Mama was still having my sisters and brothers. My oldest brother died when he was a baby, but my next brother that lived, he was 3 days older than Mondelez, my oldest. And so I couldn't just go to her and
There was no
just,
help.
no.
It's not like today. There is no safe places. There were no crisis centers.
You made your bed right in it.
You just did it.
Even if the bed was made for you.
You just did it.
Okay, baby.
You took what you had and you made the best of what you had, and you tried your best to survive. It wasn't like she could call the local. Well, she did call one time, and they came out and
They didn't want to tear families apart.
yeah. Wasn't it the school that came out? To the house?
No, I called the police. and
You
they
called the
came.
police and they came. Yeah, there was no help, and they left us there, which made it a lot worse than it was before. He was a devil with flesh around his bones.
So how long did he keep you away from home?
3 months. 3 months. Took me into an apartment. Said I'll be back in a few minutes. I had never been away from my mom and daddy for no reason. And took me into an apartment. Said I'll be back in a little while. Came back a day and a night and a day later, and said he'd been out with a waitress. Just spending time with her. Now, I didn't know how to go out of the apartment and go home. I was just there. I was just stuck. Just stuck. Sad sometimes. I will say the only good thing that no, I take it back. I have the Lord. I got saved when I was 16 years old. I have Him for my very best friend. But my kids and my grandkids are the only thing that makes my life worth going home for.
Just
Do you think, this is a question I've always wanted to know, do you think that Daddy hated Jamie because that's when he had to marry you?
No.
He just hated her just because he hated her?
We lived in Texas. We had come back. I got put on a bus from Texas to Knoxville, to Mom and Daddy's house, and had Mondalee and Sissy, the two oldest, pregnant with Jamie. And then supposedly he had his heart attack when I was pregnant with Jamie. And I couldn't really tell you why.
That's my fault too.
He was just a hateful. He was just
A demon.
unbelievable.
He was a demon.
Yeah, he was just unreal.
If you can think of a form of an abuse, he did it. He did it. There's nothing that you can come up with that he didn't do.
And I look back now and wonder why. Why? I can't say I would have killed him, can I?
Yeah. Say what you want.
I would have. I prayed every day he die. Every day. When he'd go to sleep, I'd say, Lord, if you was not let him wake up, I'll live for you forever. Which he don't answer them kind of prayers.
Son of a gun kept waking up, didn't
Yeah.
he? The number one rule of anybody being abused is don't tell. That's the law. You don't tell. Because if you tell, then that's your shame. It's always a secret. Nobody has to tell you don't tell. That's just the thing. And it's hard to break the silence because people that have not been abused can't comprehend how you can be abused and not tell.
Because you get threatened.
Yeah. Your life gets threatened. You get told it's your fault. You are told that you're the one that brought it on. If you hadn't done this, it wouldn't have happened. It's because you were this way and that's why it happened. And I've said a million times, they get you here before they ever put their hands on you. Because if they can get you in the mind, then you allow them to put their hands on you. Because then it's your fault. One of my memories of Harlan, when we were little, we lived in what we called the new house. And somebody, I don't even know who did it, bought him a canteen, a little army canteen. And Daddy had told him not to put water in it. And I didn't know that he told him not to put water in it. And I filled it up. And when Daddy seen it with water, you ready?
I will.
He beat Harlan until he couldn't hardly stand up. And I remember him just beating him. And me telling him, I'm the one that put the water in it. Don't whip him. I'm the one that put the water in it. Didn't care. It was his canteen. He was told not to fill it up. And he got beat because I put water in his canteen.
Jamie just got beat for the heck of it.
She got beat just because it's there.
She didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to do nothing. She didn't have to get caught in anything. She just...
The mood struck him. He beat her.
It won't cut.
You think of him, what do you think of?
Satan. I don't think of him. What's it matter? Everything was my fault. So what's it matter?
Is that why you still feel that way sometimes? That everything that happens is your
That's the way it was
fault?
put. That's the way it always been put.
He told me himself what he did to her. And it wasn't pretty, and I ain't gonna say it on camera. He done things to her that shouldn't ever be done to a grown woman. And ain't no way I could take it away. If I could, I would.
See, a lot of people say, why did you say? Why did you stay? Well, I'll be the first to tell you, because she had no choice. We tried to leave. She's tried to leave him 1,000,000 times to protect us, and it just got worse. We left one time, and I don't even remember why. I just remember he went ballistic and pulled a gun on us, and he was going to shoot Jamie. And when he pulled the gun on us, we ran out the back door and went through the woods and hid in the woods all night. And I remember when we came out of it, I was hysterical. The only time my mom has ever hit me in my face is we come out of the woods and I seen headlights coming at us, and I went hysterical. And she had to slap me to get me under control. But we crossed the street and went and hid. She put us in a ditch to hide us. And I literally watched her army crawl to get to a phone to get us rescued. And then one time we left before, and he come at us head on and beat our windshield out of our car with a ball bat and was choking her. People driving by looking at her. Us in the car screaming and crying. And him beating her in the street. People just drive right on by.
Oh, Nanny, let's clear this up for the record. When you knew that he was abusive, obviously, because you endured as much abuse as anybody else did, but you never knew what was happening to Jamie until
She was 17 years old. 17. It started happening right before she turned 8 years old. And I didn't know about it until she turned 17. Then I tried to fix her a room of her own so she wouldn't have to sleep with the littler girls. And she wouldn't take it. And then she told me what happened. Like I say, and that's when I call the cops. They come out. Instead of doing something about it, they put all of us in a room, sat down, Jamie in the room, him in the room, and asked the question if she would be comfortable living in the house with him. What was she supposed to say? No, I hate him, and make it worse on herself.
Because they would have left her here. I mean, they would have left her behind. That's one thing you can't stress enough to people these days. There was no help. There was no help. You didn't get DHS called and somebody come and rescue. They left you there. If you spoke about it, it just made your life hell. There was no help.
No. Verbal abuse is sometimes worse than physical abuse. Physical abuse will heal, verbal abuse won't go away. Jamie had it worse than any of them. Any of them. She had no refuge. She had no... I don't know.
And she did it in silence, is the hard part. I mean, I can't say it's the hard part, but you know what I mean.
Number one, there's no way in this world, under the sun, under any circumstances, can you change the past, no matter how hard you try. But I am 74 years old. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. I can either cry about what's been going on in the past. I can either try to do something about it that's I can't, or I can go on living my life in the best way that I can.
And we laughed through the smoke.